I'm really excited for this panel. These are some really amazing individuals. They are really changing the kind of landscape of charity, and they're really fundamental to Bitcoin as an ideology also. A lot of people wonder, you know, what can we do, how can we help people without the government, how can we get people informed, whether it's about anti-war or anti-imperialism, how can we help the homeless, how do we solve some of these social problems that we're facing without government? Well, charity is the answer, private charity, and these Bitcoin charities have changed thousands of lives collectively. So I'm really excited about this. Do some quick introductions. We have Davi Barker of Bitcoin Not Bombs, Jason King of Sean's Outpost, Teresa Warmke of Free Aid, Rassah from Bitcoin 100, and Angela Keaton from antiwar.com. Thank you. Awesome. So, also today, there's going to be a luncheon. Oh, I'm Meghan Lords. I'm editor of Bitcoin Not Bombs, and I work with Sean's Outpost, write for Bitcoin Magazine. So basically, I do have a few notes here. So I guess we're asking people to download the Texas Bitcoin Conference mobile app. We're also doing a charity luncheon today. The proceeds will benefit all of the charities up here, so definitely check that out. Get tickets from Michelle 7, or ask us and we can probably find you tickets to that, so definitely come check that out. That's going to be great. And there's also going...
I think it's in this room.
Okay, they're selling tickets at registration, so check that out. There's also going to be the Bitcoin Cert tonight, too. So, all right, so we'll get this started. What inspired you to start your organization?
So, I suppose we were silver bugs before we were into Bitcoin. Drew and I used to work on Don't Tread on Me. Those were the silver dime cards, and we had slogans like fashioning the silver economy or boycott an empire of theft, stuff like that. And so for us, alternative currency was sort of native to our thinking. So when Bitcoin emerged, it was interesting to us immediately. And we saw it as a means of protest, to sort of remove ourselves from the war dollar and to invest in some sort of alternative currency was seen as a means of protest. So the name Bitcoin Not Bombs originally was a slogan for a campaign that we did for anti-war when antiwar.com, when they began taking Bitcoin, but we've sort of merged into our own organization. And so what really was our, I guess, mission starting out was to combat a stereotype that was emerging that Bitcoin was going to be used for drugs and for illicit activities online and things like that. We said, no, Bitcoin is useful for all of these sorts of like charitable endeavors too. It is a free currency, and it will do what free markets do with currency. And so we just saw a need to really make that line to say that there are all of these positive aspects of Bitcoin, and on top of that, you can boycott an empire of theft.
All right. I would very much have not liked to have started Sean's Outpost. Sean's Outpost is, it's named after Sean Dugas, who was, and I'm going to cry saying this, who was my best friend, and he was murdered in 2012. Actually over theft of Magic the Gathering cards, which is really screwed up and it doesn't make any sense. I wasn't living in the same town with him at the time, and my wife and I found out that Sean died on CNN, which is just, it's horrible. And so we struggled for months after this loss of figuring out, you know, we had lost this amazing person, and what are we going to do to keep his memory alive? And another homeless outreach in Pensacola was shutting its doors, and the person that ran it had been good friends with Sean too. And we said, well, the least that we could do is we could keep this meal going. But so we did. So we did one, and we had never really exposed ourselves to what the homeless problem was. And we just jumped down a rabbit hole, and we realized how one problem led to another, and how it wasn't just the stereotypes that people think of in terms of homelessness, that there are all of these economic conditions that lead to homelessness, and that we're all, you know, most of us are one paycheck or one terrible life incident away from being on the street. And, we have guys in Pensacola with master's degrees from MIT, and they live in a camp, and so that's it. And so Bitcoin, homelessness isn't sexy, it's not cute. There's not like little puppies involved, or there's not like cute seals that are getting abused. It's actually really hard to look at. It's really hard to look at another human being that's in a situation that we all know that we could all be in that situation. But human nature isn't, unfortunately, to reach out and say, to have compassion for that. Human nature is to look away because we don't want to deal with the fact that we could really be in that person's shoes. The consequence of that is it's actually very difficult to be in a hunger charity. It's very difficult to be in a homeless charity because you get a lot of pushback. You get a lot of people that look at you no differently than if you are feeding stray dogs. And so Bitcoin has been so instrumental to us to Sean's Outpost's mission, because in our area it is functionally illegal to be homeless. So the socioeconomic conditions that make those laws possible also make it very difficult to fundraise in that area, because the same people that are creating the laws are the people that control most of the economy there. But so what Bitcoin has done is that we can open up to the whole world, and we can tell our case to the whole world. And if you think that people starving to death in the street is a bad thing, and you are in Germany and you don't want to see people starve to death in Florida, instantly you can fund that, and you can make sure that someone gets a sandwich. And that's never really been possible, ever, in the history of humanity. Is that if you care about someone else or some issue somewhere else, anywhere on the planet Earth, you can come to their aid with your treasure. And that's what makes Bitcoin magic internet money, is that you can do that. And that's John's Outpost.
Thanks. Before I talk about free aid, I'd like to talk about the raffle. We're doing a charity raffle, and we're going to be drawing prizes during the big concert, which is going to be awesome. Tatiana, who's here, will be singing. Beautiful. And so raffle tickets are for fabulous prizes, including 3 silver rounds from Roberts & Roberts, and a Bitcoin hula hoop from Meghan, and several other things, some hoodie from Free Aid, and a few other some anti-war things as well. And we'll be drawing the winners right before the concert, because we'll only have 30 seconds in between the sets at the concert. So tickets are either $1 each or 1 millibitcoin each. So Bitcoin purchasers get a break. I'm selling tickets. I have some with me. There's some at our booth, which is number 21, and the front desk registration also has some tickets for the raffle. So please join us. And so to talk about what inspired me to start Free Aid, I was attending a festival in New Hampshire called Porcupine Freedom Festival, in 2009, I think it was. And I've always had a passion for teaching people about CPR, and because anyone can have cardiac arrest. And I used to work at a company that makes defibrillators, and I have one, and I donated one to Free Aid. And I had one with me at that very first PorcFest I attended, because I just wanted to talk to people about what they can do to help save a life of someone near them. And I just sat around in what's called Agora Valley there, of people that vend things at PorcFest, and talked with people about CPR and how to use the defibrillator. And I felt like if people could hear it and hear how it gives you instruction each step of the way, that they would be more likely to respond in case someone had a cardiac arrest. And so, and during that process, I met some amazing people, including Garland West, my co-founder for Free Aid, and Stephanie Murphy, my current partner in Free Aid, and currently also with Let's Talk Bitcoin. Many people might know her. And we decided for the following year to see if we could find other medically skilled Liberty lovers to kind of help us do some first aid. First aid isn't really my bailiwick. I can put a Band-Aid on, and I'm kind of the mom first aid kind of person, but combined with my knowledge about CPR and defibrillation, I felt like this was a really good opportunity to teach a lot of people about what they can do and try to empower people to step up, because time is of the essence when someone's having a cardiac arrest. So that's what really inspired me, and all the people that came together. I mean, we have about 70 volunteers now in our group, and they inspire me every day to continue with free aid. So, thank you.
I'm Rassah. I'm currently running Bitcoin 100. The idea was actually not mine. It belonged to Bruno Kozinskas, I think. You might know him better as Phineas Gage on the forums. The original idea, and this happened back in November of 2011, was to promote Bitcoin, that it's out there, that it exists, kind of advertise it. And the way we would do that is we convinced charities to add Bitcoin as a donation option on our website, and we would have 100 people pledge 1 Bitcoin at a time back then to donate to any charity that does so. What happened though is a lot of people were kind of lazy, didn't want to follow the forums, so they're just like, here's 5 Bitcoins, give 1 at a time away to other charities, and just, I trust you guys, leave me out of it. Before we knew it, we collected about, it was about $1,500, maybe $2,000 back then, which came out to about 150 to 200 Bitcoins. So it wasn't really a lot. But also, since nobody really knew about Bitcoin or thought it was kind of, I mean, we come to a charity, say, hey, do this for us, we'll give you $1,000, and then be like, are you trying to scam us, kind of thing. So we had a lot of trouble giving out the money in the first year. I think we did maybe 5 charities in the first year, and then before we knew it, we were sitting in a pile of $200,000. So, and right now, recently, we did like 50 charities in the last 3 or 4 months, so it's been going pretty good. So,
awesome. Thank you.
I'm Angela with antiwar.com. And antiwar.com actually is a rather old project now. Our founders got the URL for anti-war in 1995. It was in a response to Clinton's intervention in the Balkans. And then, when Clinton went to Haiti and Kosovo and Sudan and Afghanistan, of course, each president has a series of wars and bombings that he has instigated or continued. We don't hide, well, we're not a libertarian website. We're strictly a, news, public opinion, a very aggressive news aggregator, and have opinions and editorials from all over the political spectrum. There's no litmus test basically beyond being anti-war, anti-intervention, and being, taking a critical look at U.S. foreign policy. But the staff itself, and it's rooted in libertarian philosophy, basically in Randolph Bourne's concept that war is the health of the state. And as libertarians, we see that with each war, the state increases greatly in terms of surveillance, in terms of being punitive towards different groups, and all the other problems that go along with running an empire. So that's what antiwar.com does, and we pretty much have done that 24/7, and we apply that to we apply our principles to people of all ideologies. So we're critical of wars started by whomever. It's more of a philosophy than it is a political stance. And we're very grateful to all the people up here who in many ways have contributed to antiwar.com and enriched us, and particularly have brought us on board with Bitcoin. So thank you.
What has been your experience with the advantages of accepting Bitcoin, and what challenges have you faced?
I guess I would echo what Jason has said. It's really interesting that you can get people from all over the country or all over the world to donate to a local project. With our Hoodie the Homeless campaign, when I had pitched the same idea a year previously during the Occupy movement, and I just could not get the support from those people. And then once we did the same sort of project of just distributing hoodies to the homeless, but we did it as a Bitcoin fundraiser, we got donations from South Africa, from Poland, from Japan. Like, it was suddenly this entirely global project. And so that's been really fascinating. It's also interesting that you speculate. You can't help but speculate on the currency if you're using it. And so with these projects that are annual, like Shire Sharing does a Thanksgiving meal thing, and our Hoodie the Homeless thing is now an annual winter thing. So when people donate to those sorts of projects in the beginning of the year, you sort of benefit from the appreciation because you've held it for an entire year for that project. And so that's really interesting. And then as far as challenges are concerned, everybody thinks you're doing it wrong. And you kind of just have to. So one of the things we've been doing is we've been challenging the idea of a distinction between profit and nonprofit. We're not really concerned with tax status when we talk about the charities that we want to help or the causes that we want to help. And so some people have construed profiting from a project like this as exploitation of the people you're helping, right? So like, for example, for our first sort of benefit t-shirt, there were logos of the sponsors on the shirt. It was sort of like a marathon shirt, right? And people said, oh, well, you're exploiting these people and using them as billboards and things like that. But so there's always critics, and I think that has been the biggest challenge, especially because Bitcoin has its own critics. So on top of the people who want to come and tell you that you're playing with monopoly money, there are the people who want to come and tell you that you're not doing it right if you don't have 501c3 status and you don't have, you haven't filled out all the forms or whatever. However they think that you're supposed to help people. It doesn't matter whether or not you are. You're just not doing it right.
Davi, you're not doing it right. I'm just going to put that out there. No, I'd like to echo him. I think that's a huge thing. I think that we have this mindset in America, for sure, that there is a small cage that charity is supposed to exist in, and you need to be inside of that box, and you need to play by all of the rules in it. And if you do, then that's cool that you get this 501c3 status, and it's this magical happy land where everybody gets a tax deduction by giving you money, and no one cares if you accomplish anything. They just care if they get a tax deduction on their receipt. I think that's really screwed up. And I know that I'm kind of off topic here, but it's a huge thing. And nonprofits and charities is that they're not held to a standard that we would just balk at in the for-profit sector, which is that you need to show results, that you need to have metrics that we can account on, and that you need to show that you're actually making a difference for whatever that you are collecting funds for. However you get from point A to point B, if you're making an actual impact in your community and you can measure that, that's what we should care about. We shouldn't care about whether you're on some magic government list that grants you a tax deduction. I care if you say you're a hunger charity, how many people aren't starving in your community now? That's what matters to me, not whether you have fed them in the appropriate way, to whether, that the government's happy about it. And I'd actually say the government can make it so much worse, because if you look at the nonprofit sector as a whole, it's optimized all wrong. It's optimized towards government grants. That's what everything's optimized towards. Where's your grant writer? Do you have a good grant writer, guys? That's what you need. You need a grant writer. You don't need to actually iteratively improve on your core customer base or whatever your core philosophy is. You just need to get a good grant writer. And so like in Pensacola, we have over 1,000 homeless people on the streets every night. We have 30 permanent shelter beds, soon to be 116 thanks to Satoshi Forest. But so we have temporary shelter, right? We have 200 beds that are temporary shelter, and 100 of those beds used to be permanent shelter beds. So they actually used to be making a difference. And then the Waterfront Mission, the company that ran that, converted 100 permanent shelter beds to 100 temporary shelter beds. And we were like, why would you do that? Why'd you do that? You were helping. And then you kind of pulled the help. And we're like, well, there's this great new government grant that Obama has pushed through. And so for temporary shelter beds. So we get all this money now they got paid off to make the problem worse. And and if you take that's just one example, but if you walk through the process and you see that you're no longer optimizing towards fixing your goal or helping the problem that you established an organization for, that you have now just optimized towards whether you're going to get funding from this one corrupt source. That's why we don't see real solutions to things like hunger and homelessness and whatever else your charity is that you want to, AIDS research, cancer research, things like that. We don't, because we're optimized incorrectly for those things. And Bitcoin has turned that on its head. It's completely turned that on its head, because I don't have to optimize for anything other than helping the people that I say that I'm going to help for and doing the most good that I can. And I can get on a world stage and say, hey, it's really screwed up that it's illegal to be homeless in Pensacola. I'm going to buy 9 acres, and we're going to make a homeless sanctuary out of it. We're going to pay for the whole thing with Bitcoin. And if you guys would like to help us, you can donate that wherever you're from. And it just happened. We didn't go ask permission for it. We just did it. And now people that were at risk for being arrested for nothing more than sleeping in a park bench don't have to do that. And that happened because of Bitcoin. That happened like almost exclusively because of Bitcoin. And it's more than that. It's when we did it, the county came to us and they said, you can't do this. Like this, you can't have a campground that just caters to homeless people. That's crazy. Like they actually said that it was an emergency threat to security and well-being of the people of Escambia County that we had a campground that catered directly to the homeless. And so they said, you're going to shut this down or we're going to take you to court. And this is a big thing too. When they threaten to take you to court, go to court, because they don't want you to go to court. They want you to just back off. And so we went to court, and with great legal counsel, and we got them to strike that down, that no, this is not a threat. This is helping people, that you can't just tell people it's a threat because you don't like it. And so because of Bitcoin, we won that legal victory. And then they came back a month and a half later and, with a cease and desist order again. And they basically said, well, because being homeless is a crime. So like these guys are aiding and abetting in a crime. And we went to court over that again. And literally because of Bitcoin, now if you are an attorney that is fighting for the rights of a homeless person in the state of Florida, just look up Sean's Outpost it's the Escambia County v. Sean's Outpost, judgment of February 16th of 2014. And in no uncertain terms, it is now put down that being homeless in the state of Florida is not a crime. And that's a judgment, and that's precedent. You get that? That like we took ones and zeros, right? And we put them in a specific order. And now because of that, there is a codified precedent that anyone can go to and be like, nope, sorry, I'm sorry, Mr. District Attorney, like just because your politicians don't like homeless people outside of the restaurants downtown, you don't get to lock them up now. And that's there, and it's a small victory, but it's there and it's real. And Sean's Outpost is 355 days old. Imagine what we can do when we are 3 years old, when we are 15 years old, And that's it. And everybody that's here and that's excited about Bitcoin, you haven't seen anything yet. Anything. What we're doing is like, this is TCP/IP. This is just like the basics of what's going on. And the stuff that we're going to see, the innovation that we're going to see on blockchain technology is going to blow your mind. So just stick around, guys. And then what we're going to see in this space, in charity and nonprofit, we're really changing the world. And these people on this panel are doing it. So I'm gonna stop monopolizing the mic.
Thank you, Jason. That's going to be hard to follow up, but congratulations on your victories. That's awesome. I completely agree that charities need to be about results, and I totally agree on that. So I think the question was about benefits. One of the main benefits that Free Aid has from Bitcoin is, I'm the treasurer, and I can be kind of lazy because we have transparency about stuff, and blockchain.info allows me to add a public note to my transactions that I send out. And so I can just sort of put in a note and then forget about it until later, and I don't have to keep separate books. The blockchain does it for me, and blockchain.info helps me out with annotations and things like that. So transparency has been a great benefit of using Bitcoin, and it's just so much simpler, to use Bitcoin versus checks and delays for PayPal and confiscations from PayPal and all of those kinds of things. And I'm proud to say that Free Aid has operated exclusively in Bitcoin Bitcoin since the San Jose Bitcoin conference last year. We sold 3 T-shirts with credit cards, and I just said, it's just not worth it, the hassle and the fees and everything like that. So there's huge benefit from Bitcoin in terms of way lower fees, like almost negligible compared to credit cards and things like that. So those are huge benefits, because anything donated to us, more comes to us and less goes to these big corporations that are, not really deserving that money, in my opinion. So those are huge benefits. And another huge benefit of Bitcoin is this is a real grassroots, action-oriented community. And I really saw that when a friend of mine was living in Cebu City in the Philippines, and he was fine after the typhoon, and he saw that some of his neighbors up to the north on this island were just completely devastated. And he really, he didn't know them all, but he saw that they were hurting, and he immediately sprang into action and asked for some donations on his Facebook page. And I asked him if he took Bitcoin, and he didn't, but I said, okay, I'm going to set up a Bitcoin fund for you and send you the money. And lo and behold, we raised over $20,000 in Bitcoin. And it was just amazing. I love this community. This is just a friend of mine, and I just blogged about it. I have this friend that's there. He sees people that are hurting, and he wants to help them and bring them medical supplies, shelter, food, water, basic stuff. And he went to the places where the big aid agencies weren't going, with these islands that were very, kind of far-flung and that kind of thing. And he just sprang into action and helped, and I was just overwhelmed by the support of this community that was trusting us to, with this friend of mine that was on the ground. So that was, and then Free Aid really helped us publicize all of that. And this really kind of opened up a whole kind of new channel for Free Aid to help people. And, some of our team are talking about maybe for the next disaster, maybe sending some of us, a lot of our team are very medically skilled. We have some MDs, nurse practitioners, EMTs, paramedics, things like that. So, we definitely are looking toward that more for the future, but just being able to harness that much, that quickly, to quickly aid people rather than going through all of these bureaucratic channels and boards of directors and you name it, Bitcoin allows us to be very fast at helping people. So that's the biggest benefit. And we really haven't encountered a challenge we haven't been able to overcome, so I'm not going to really talk about challenges.
So I forgot to mention Bitcoin 100 started out with the idea of 100 Bitcoins to a charity. We kind of had to change that to $1,000. Back then it was about $1,000 too, because now it'd be a little too much. But regarding advantages, I don't think something like Bitcoin 100 would be able to exist without Bitcoin. There's this new idea that you guys may have heard going on called distributed autonomous organizations or distributed autonomous corporations. I would actually posit that Bitcoin 100 may have been the first of those, because we have a single Bitcoin address. All the money that gets donated goes into that address. All the money that we send to charity comes out of that address, so everybody can see all our accounts. And the people who control the address, one of them there's a couple of them out there that share the keys, and they were basically picked and trusted with it. And we also have a single rule, which is any charity that is established, non-political and secular, that adds Bitcoin to their website will get $1,000, and that's it. So we don't have specific employees. I basically named myself the director after Bruno stepped down for the hell of it, mainly because I'm doing most of the work because other people aren't volunteering. But nobody else wants to do my job because it doesn't pay anything. But essentially, we have this one idea. We have this address. Anybody who wants to do the accounting or go look for charities or do any kind of work, they just step in and do it. So essentially the entire thing basically runs out in the cloud without any sort of banks or 501c whatever registrations, and anybody is free to pick up the idea and go with it, and as long as we follow this one single rule, the same will exist. So even if, let's say, government says, hey, you don't have this registration to be a charity and takes me away, it's not going to do anything because the money is out in the cloud and there's a lot of other people just controlling this thing. So it's kind of this distributed group type of thing that just has an idea and is pushing it out.
Well, for antiwar.com, Bitcoin has one really special advantage. Back in 2011, it came to the attention of our director and editorial director that antiwar.com and they had as activists were under FBI surveillance for many reasons, going back dating actually the 70s, but most specifically the organization under the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. So the ACLU took the case immediately, and it's been an interesting long journey. But what Bitcoin does for us is it allows people to donate privately. Like you don't have any of the normal records. You don't have a trail. You don't have to explain this to your accountant or why you're donating to this group to your wife. You're keeping it under, you're keeping it under the radar because given of all the issues, and I know people can name things that are much juicier, but for some reason the anti-war issue seems to be the most controversial. It cuts to the heart of what a state does, and of course, nationalist identity in terms of rah-rah USA. It's such an emotional issue where so much ego and it's driven by. So Bitcoin allows you to just snap it over to us, and we can do all kinds of things with Bitcoin, including take care of a lot of the minor tasks that a website like ours needs without a whole lot of fuss and transactional costs and all the other things that people here mention. But for us, it really comes down to you're allowed to express your political ideology without a lot of fanfare. So it's really a miracle, and we're looking forward to a future. I mean, I look forward to the day when we don't need something like antiwar.com, but in the meantime, Bitcoin is there. So thank you.
All right, we're running a little short on time, so I'm going to ask you all one more question, and then we'll open it up to the audience. If you could just keep your answers brief, what are your plans for the future? We've heard a lot of your outreach projects, so what do you have planned next?
I think we're going to be focusing on borders in the next year. We're going to be looking for projects or organizations that are more international than the ones we've worked with so far, and we really want to focus on this characteristic of Bitcoin, that it is transnational. And so the campaigns that we're going to be working on in the near future are going to be about expressing that and explaining that, and more importantly, demonstrating that. Because I think that is an essential component that it explains sort of why it is such a powerful currency. It is not a national currency, it is a global currency. And if you can show that and you can prove it and you can show that it's possible for foreign aid, for foreign relief, for whatever reason, that's going to sort of explain to people the power of the currency. And also it means that the borders are breaking down. That's what we're trying to demonstrate.
Sean's Outpost's plans for the next year is we're going to be opening up some Sean's Outpost charters in other cities around the world, and we're also working heavily on the concept of a distributed autonomous charity, and taking all of the human error out of it and taking the target off of an organization and making it where you cannot like what my organization does, but you basically can't stop what my organization does. And what my organization does is feed people and try to find shelter for people that don't have it, and in things that are caused by poverty. And I think that there's a way now, and we don't have it yet, but I think that there's going to be a way where we can program this into the blockchain, where we can make an algorithm that says that this is it. We need, we want to put money in this side, and we want care to come out the other side. And I think that will be possible, and that's what we plan on working on for the next year.
Thanks. For free aid, I'll talk about the short term and the long term. Short term, right now we're getting ready for PorcFest. We do this every year in June, and this year we had a fabulous, amazing donation from Broker.com, BRAWKER.com. They gave us 2.5 Bitcoin, broker, yeah. They gave us 2.5 Bitcoins to get things started there. So if you want to acquire Bitcoins relatively anonymously, I have to say, you can log on to broker.com, but it's spelled the way I spelled it. And and then buy some stuff for us that we need. We have a lot of orders up there now, and things like a Easy Up tent for it's at a campground, so in order to shelter people that may be having a hard time or need to lie down for a while or something like that, you can order all kinds of stuff, bandages. We always need things like this, so that's kind of cool, and that's one thing we're getting ready for in the short term. Long term, we definitely also, similar to Sean's Outpost, want to set up some chapters in various places. About half of our team is located in New Hampshire, but we have team members all over the world, and we'd like to support that further, and also at the same time setting up like maybe a designated fund for the next disaster that might happen. So, and Bitcoin is fantastic that way. I firmly believe it will continue to rise in value versus the dollar just because of the way it's set up and the fact that it's not centralized, so no one can inflate it without a major change to the protocol that no one would agree with. So I really believe it's going to continue to rise in value, which will only help us help other people when disasters hit all over the world. So for the long term, that's our plan. But we do plan on keeping disaster relief more grassroots, similar to the way we did with the Philippines, because I really believe that's the way to go, and that's the way to help people quickly and the best way. So that's it.
So as I mentioned, we do have that one rule, so obviously we plan to stick to the rule and carry it out. Hopefully, I'm really hoping that we will reduce our account balance by a bit, because it's not fun having to carry so much money. The other thing is a lot of charities, they have accounting concerns. Specifically, it's hard enough to convince charities to take money, like a lot of it, but to take some weird fancy currency. It's like, in short, we try to get them to use payment processors. Right now, payment processors that you probably know about, like BIPs and BitPay and all those stuff, they don't exist in a lot of other countries, and we do have charities in places like Indonesia and Uganda and stuff where those don't really reach there, or Canada, where they charge rather high fees to their exchanges there. So our plan is to try to talk to a couple of exchanges and see if we can set something up where they can do discounts for charities. Because, for instance, BitPay and Coinbase do 0% fees if you're a nonprofit. So.
Our future, of course, as always, is to keep fighting the empire. And one of the ways that people can think about doing that is and I realize we have all different levels and degrees of how we live our lives and practicality, but when you spend the Federal Reserve note, think about how much of that goes to support occupation and torture and death and destruction overseas. And if we can get people to think about that, I think that's where the revolution part begins. And just a reminder that empire, it touches all these issues. We want grassroots disaster relief because we do not want the United States government to look for an excuse to go in and bother the Haitians again. I mean, it's just not making an excuse to expand the empire. Or when dealing with homelessness, the fact that we have vets who come back with PTSD and they have problems and cannot function and cope. And these are things that everything has a connection, unfortunately, to empire. I think I can probably draw the lines to anything. But so the future for us is getting people to think about that, how empire, having an empire being part of that, being morally and ethically responsible for some really horrible, horrible things overseas and here that shouldn't happen with our money, that the fruits of our labor shouldn't be taken for that. That's essentially what Davi said, empire of theft. So I think that those things are just all connected. So coming here to Bitcoin, to me, it comes all back to peace.
Awesome. I guess I'll open it up to questions from the audience.
First I'd like to say I admire all your passions and your academic.
Come on.
It's awesome. It seems to me that it would be maybe
it seems to me that one of the probably biggest difficulties you face is actually raising funds. Can you talk about like the avenues you go about doing that, like forums, website outreach? We talk about that a little bit.
I'll start. It really hasn't been too difficult for Free Aid to raise funds. A lot of people, we started taking Bitcoin because people really wanted to give us Bitcoin, and so it was relatively easy for us. So I'm not really sure. I'd be happy to talk to some of Rassah's clients to
Yeah,
make that easier.
what you do is you get a bus, right? And then you put Bitcoin on the side of it, big QR codes, and then you drive the bus across, and then you run across America, and then people just give you money. It's crazy. Sorry.
Yeah. We've just been publicizing through the freeaid.com blog and Twitter. But, the more the merrier. If you want to go to, our Twitter handle is freeaid, FR33aid. So follow us there. But, the more publicity, the better.
Yeah, some of the charities asked us this too, like, hey, so any way we can raise more money, and pretty much the only thing I can suggest is post to Reddit, post to Bitcoin Talk. There's a lot of people on there with money who are looking to donate, and they just don't know where to give the money to. So there's a lot of really charitable giving.
I think most charities I've talked to haven't had a lot of problems with it as soon as they started being very specific and showing the work that they were doing, where it wasn't something opaque where you put some money into it and you had no idea what your dollars went to. But if you go out of your way to demonstrate what you're doing with the funds and what your ambition is and what you hope to accomplish, I think that resonates really well with the whole cryptocurrency community. And so I would say that's a good way. And, r/Bitcoin on Reddit. It's a great place. It's been fantastic for us, Bitcoin Talk. But really just talking to other Bitcoiners and telling them what you're doing. And I think that's a pretty good place to start.
We've made a strong effort to turn merchandising into fundraising. So we take general donations, and general donations are just the general fund for the organization. But on top of that, whenever we have a campaign, there's usually an associated product. And so, for example, with the Hoodie the Homeless project, there were T-shirts and there were hoodies that we sold, and it was just a one-for-one. If you buy a hoodie, you're giving a hoodie. If you buy a T-shirt, then you're giving a hoodie. And so that way, there's this feedback mechanism with the donor base that they not only they feel like they've given. We were pricing it so that it was close to retail anyway. But then on top of that, they get to be proud of what they've contributed to, and they get to demonstrate that this is something that they support. It's the same with the pins. There's all these ways that you can sort of help people spread the word for you by rewarding them for donating. And so that's something that we explore a lot.
Sorry, forgot to mention regarding our future plans, and this kind of ties into it, trying to keep the plans. We keep a list of, on bitcoin100.org, we keep a list of all the charities that we have donated to. We are planning on reorganizing that list to have just a list of Bitcoin accepting charities with just the ones that we have marked. So if you have a charity that accepts Bitcoin, you can send that to us and we'll put it up on the list as well.
I pastor and we run a gay and lesbian primarily church down very south, about 10 minutes, 15 minutes from the border in Texas. So, so we're a very small community. We always don't get a lot of respect, and there's no one else doing what we do there. So just in doing that, I feel like a lot of people feel like they'd probably want to stick it to the man, as far as everything else, they feel like they don't get treated fairly, of course, the story. So, we're really thinking about incorporating Bitcoin, certainly, as a way for donation. I just didn't know, I wanted to ask you guys, have you seen it work in a church before? Do you know of any that are doing it? And maybe I could kind of just see how it's working for them, and maybe some tips for that.
I don't think I've ever seen a church use Bitcoin.
I know that there are a couple of Bitcoin accepting churches. I'm an atheist, and my organization's secular, so I don't have a lot of input on that. But I know that it is, and I think that it's probably working fairly well for them.
Do you think we would be welcomed
in the Bitcoin community?
As far as because we are, a religious organization, I know.
Yeah.
Would we, would it be?
In Baltimore, there's a synagogue, Orthodox Jewish synagogue, that was accepting Bitcoin for a while, but the Bitcoiner who goes to the Baltimore meetups recently posted that they had to stop because their higher-ups read some bad news about how Bitcoin was hacked recently, so yeah. But yeah, there's also Bitcoin 100 actually gave a couple of donations to charities that were they're secular, but they're run by a church. They're just not religiously affiliated, and the churches are not taking money too. So
Yeah, I would say absolutely. The Bitcoin community will support you, but like we've been saying, show your results, take pictures of what you do, and help inspire people. That would be the key. But one thing I did want to add is part of the Hoodie the Homeless outreach was that was organized by Bitcoin Not Bombs. Was my daughters and I went down to a mosque that Davi knows in San Francisco that also feeds homeless people in San Francisco, and we handed out hoodies there. So that was
talk about that a little bit. For what it's worth, I'm Muslim. Bitcoin Not Bombs is not an Islamic organization. I just happen to be Muslim. But part of the Hoodie the Homeless campaign was that we partnered with a group called Project Feed, which was distributing lunches in San Francisco. And it's also not an Islamic organization, but it's like probably more than half Muslim. And so it was based out of a mosque. And so part of that was talking to people about Bitcoin in that space. So as far as I know, there's no mosques that take Bitcoin, but there's definitely an interest in the Muslim community because governments have targeted Muslim charities more than others because Muslim charities are apt to sort of contribute money to countries overseas that are targets of the military. And so there's a sort of fear to donate to anything or to put your name on anything. So I haven't faced any discrimination on religious grounds from the Bitcoin community. It seems like, as far as the Bitcoin community is concerned, it is anything goes. So I don't think that you would see that. I don't think that there are not like raging atheists saying, "How dare you take Bitcoin?" And I haven't seen any raging Christians say, "How dare you open a gay church?" either. So
I have, yeah.
Not in the Bitcoin space, though, is what I mean.
Yeah. But I mean, there's assholes everywhere, you know. I mean, there's assholes in Bitcoin too. I mean, like there just is. It's not all rainbows and puppies and things. But I mean, as a whole, it's great.
It's already too diverse a community to have a systemic bias like that, and so. It is as broad and as diverse as any economy is. And so I wouldn't live in that kind of fear. I mean, to me, that's part of you're doing it wrong. You just have to tell them to shut up and do it anyway.
Yeah, I'd like to see more Christian organizations get involved in Bitcoin. I think that's a great idea. So, any more questions?
Just a quick comment on the previous topic. I'm a raging atheist, and I really support the idea of religious organizations, especially in the United States, getting involved in Bitcoin. And not just because they provide charity, but also for somewhat selfish reasons for Bitcoin, to promote Bitcoin, which is this. Religious organizations have two protections in the First Amendment, both free speech and establishment. And that means that if more and more religious organizations accept Bitcoin, it becomes much, much harder for the government to ban it. It becomes much, much harder for the government to prosecute it. So if we had hundreds of religious organizations accepting Bitcoin, that creates basically organizations that have standing in legal cases that can defend their rights under the strongest protections that exist in the Constitution. So yes, for charity, yes, for LGBT causes, and yes, also for constitutional reasons. I think you'll find other raging atheists in the libertarian movement who probably agree with me on that.
Awesome.
I have another.
I want to share my experience. No? Okay.
This will be the last question.
I wanted to share my experience with, for the last issue, the question came up too with the church participation. One of the things I did is I approached my pastor at church and I got permission to give paper wallets to the body of the church, to every member. I put $1 on each and I gave a piece of paper describing what it is, why you should be interested in it. And I said, if you're not interested in it, leave it in the offering basket. And so that went over well. I mean, I think it was a good approach to use.
That's awesome.
I just wanted to mention, Drew in the back of the room has raffle tickets, if you want to get some on your way out and win fabulous prizes for the Bit concert tonight.
Yes, and please get tickets for the luncheon and the Bitcoincert. Thanks to our wonderful speakers, they're changing thousands of lives, and in a few years, I'm excited for the future in Bitcoin Charities. So thanks everyone for showing up.